from the College by the Lake, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Local, regional, national, and international guests discussing the issues and topics affecting the way you live are on Forum, the North Idaho College Public Forum, with your host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart.
We're very pleased to welcome you to the final program of our 21st year of the North Idaho College Public Forum, and we'll come to you next week to commence year number 22. On this program, we're going to discuss a very important topic, and that is the question of literacy in America and around the world, and also what we are doing locally in relation to our guests who are with us today. We're very pleased to have three guests who are our friends and who are most qualified to discuss the issue of literacy. First of all, to my far left is Isla Jones, who is the coordinator of the Adult Basic Education and Jobs program that is housed at North Idaho College. I also would like to say about Isla that she chairs the North Idaho College Convocations Committee. And Isla, your people have done a wonderful job, and we thank you for all the support and the guests you've brought to the public forum via television. And next to her is Hugh Smith, who is the Idaho Literacy Volunteer of the Year, and congratulations, Hugh. It's well deserved, and you've been volunteering, I know, for a number of years to help with the literacy program, and I'm proud to say that Hugh Smith is a graduate of North Idaho College and also Lewis and Clark State College after he retired from his other occupation. And next to him is Chris Wald, who is the director of Adult Basic Education at North Idaho College, and Chris is highly qualified not only in this area, but has seen her program grow by leaps and bounds since she has been the director of that program. Welcome to all three of you. And as I open up the program, I would like to give our viewers a statistic from 1970 to 1990. The world literacy rate grew, or it has risen from about 61.5% to 73.5% of the people of the world. However, at the same time, between 1970 and 1990, the number of people who are classified as illiterate has also increased because of the fast-growing population of the world. Again, the statistics that I have indicate that in 1970 there were approximately 890 million people who were illiterate, and by 1990 that had risen to 948 million. So there's a lot of work to be done out there. And with that introduction, I also welcome Janelle Burke, who is one of our regular panelists, an attorney in the state of Idaho, and I shall ask Janelle to commence the question.
Chris, let's begin with you today and talk a little bit about the scope of the problem. Can you define for us what we're talking about, and then secondly, how large is this problem?
One of the main problems in dealing with literacy or illiteracy is that there are so many different definitions, and it all depends on who you're talking to and what numbers they want to use. Some experts say that literacy or the lack of literacy can be anything related to below a 6th grade reading level. Others are giving a more broad definition that includes the skills of critical thinking and numeracy and all of those associated type skills. So there really is no accepted definition from all of the research that I've read. We talk a lot about functional literacy too, and what does that mean? Is it the ability to pick up a newspaper and read it, or is it the ability to move around in your community and be able to read signs and have a checking account and so forth? All of our estimates are that at least minimally 20% of the United States population have some kind of literacy problems, and that's very close also to the numbers we see in our information for the state of Idaho.
So the people who would be coming to your program and the people we're going to be talking about today are people who don't read for the most part, is that correct?
That's true, that they have some kind of reading problem, or that somewhere along the line they never learned to read like they should, or they have trouble with math or with the critical thinking and speech skills. Writing skills are so very important today also. So it could be any one of those kinds of deficiencies.
And writing depends on being able to read, is
Yes.
that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, now Isla, who would come to take advantage of literacy programs?
Well, basically we see five defined populations. First would be the adult non-reader. This is the person you don't see very often. He circumvents his world by rote memorization and a plethora of schemes that are very difficult for him to don't allow him to operate within the world like other people do. Often he will not change jobs or seek other employment because he's locked where he is. He's safe there. Secondly, you see non-native English speakers, people who are after economic stability from other countries. They want to take part and parcel in the American dream. So we do have an ESL program at the college, and we are seeing an influx of non-native English speakers lately. High school dropouts. Once upon a time, the high school dropout could find employment much more easily than today. Technology has outstripped the lower-paying jobs. If you are an employer and have a choice, you're going to take a graduate or a person who is literate before you would just hire someone off the street. Very often we see parents who come in. Their children are learning to read and they want to assist them. And more in Idaho especially, we see the laid-off worker who was recently laid off. They're often middle-aged and yet too young for retirement. And so they're being sent by agencies more and more and assisted in that way.
Now, Hugh, a question to you then. What does the volunteer do in a program such as the program that you've been in?
Well, basically, we're assigned one student as a rule, and then this student we usually teach reading, math, and language. This is the basic part of the program. And then usually we will stay with that student until such time as the student progresses into the what is called the GED program. And for most part, from the parts that I have been doing is below the GED program in literacy, the beginning part of the literacy program.
Now, you'd be assigned this student, and then you start meeting with the student, I take it. And how often do you meet with them?
Usually about twice a week. That's what I've been doing, twice, sometimes three, depending. It depends a lot on the students' availability to the program. How some of them are working, and then we have to work around their jobs. If we are in a position where we can, then what we do is we set a time, and usually Chris or some of the other instructors set the dates, the times and dates when we will be instructing those students.
Chris, I want to get into some of the real substance structure that you have to the program. Mm-hmm. For those viewers, and many of them have not had any exposure to what I consider almost like your clinic. If someone walks in the door, and Isla has already identified the different kinds of students you get, could you kind of walk us through the curricula or how you set this up for the different programs?
First of all, we would have the student fill out just a one-page enrollment form that tells us a little bit of information about them. And the first thing that we do is whoever is at the front desk watches that student, because if the student kind of looks like they're going to have difficulty with that, then we don't have them do that. Because if you're a non-reader or a non-writer, how can you fill out forms? So if it looks like the student is not wanting to do that, then the student's taken directly to an instructor. If the student goes through and fills out the enrollment form, then we ask them if they would be willing to take some pre-tests. And again, whoever's working with a student has been very well trained to watch and make sure that we're not putting this student through anything that's going to be uncomfortable. We use a test called the Test of Adult Basic Education, which is excellent because it gives us a very good scope of the student's skills. And it also will show us the student's predicted success on the GED test, if that's what the student wishes to do. After the test is scored, the student comes back and is immediately taken to an instructor who then goes over the test results with the student, talks about the student's goals, because that makes a big difference in what kind of a program the student wants to be in. And together, the instructor and the student put together a plan of action for the student to work on whatever skills it is that they came in the door for, whether it's reading or math, or whether they want to get a GED, whether they need some basic skills for something they're doing on their job. And then the schedule is worked out so that it's open entry, open exit. We have some mini classes also that the student can join if they want to. One of the neat things about what Hugh is doing this year is that he sits in on the instructional part of the program. The student that he is working with is in a small class setting, a small group setting, and Hugh comes early every Tuesday and Thursday to sit in on the instructional part of that lesson so that he knows what the instructor is going over with the student, and then he follows that up. So there's a very good continuity there, and we have seen just tremendous growth with the students who have been working in this kind of a program. Student progress is always monitored. We call students on the phone if they haven't shown up to check on them, and just really try and give them all the support that they need, whether it's through direct instruction, through computer-assisted instruction, all of those kinds of avenues of learning. One thing that's very important too is we have all of our students do a learning style inventory so that we're sure that the way that we present the information fits with the way that they're going to be the most efficient in their learning. And that has been a tremendous success. It's one of the first times for some students that they've ever used a computer, and it's very non-threatening, and I think they really enjoy doing that.
So when students walk in your door, as you go through this really study with each student, that some of them come for assistance in one skill and some multi-skills, it's very individualized, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Isla, too, in relation to that, as you work on the various programs that you have there, I know that there are some students for different reasons need to be referred other places, referrals. Would you talk to us about how you process that through your center?
Well, often adults are different than children. They have different needs. They come in wanting different things. Often their time is limited, their money is limited, they have responsibilities that an adult deals with. And not only do we try to engage them in a literacy program, but we're also very cognizant of other community services that the student may not be aware of. If a student is out of food, it's very hard to learn to read if you aren't eating. We can refer them to services through the food bank. We have direct contacts there quite often on our adult basic ed board. If they're out of work, have been thrown out of employment, and often our students we see are on the lower end of the spectrum, we can connect with the job service, our contacts with job service through the JTPA programs. We run a program through, in conjunction with health and welfare, whereby we are the ed component, and folks are referred to us for assistance in obtaining GEDs or brush-up skills prior to entry into vocational programs. We're tied in with the PICS, the Industrial Council, that monitors JTPA funding, and so we are right out there with the Chamber of Commerce and everybody else in regard to referrals, and we're very fortunate in that we act as a clearinghouse often.
And also at times ombudsman.
Yes.
I know with Chris, I've talked to her a number of times about. So you really are multifaceted in relation to helping individuals realize their potential.
I always said a learning center has to be experienced. It can't be spoken about until you as easily as being lived.
My observation as I drop in and out of your center to observe and just to say hi to my friends is that you one of your code words is flexibility, and I certainly see that constantly. Hugh, I would like to get into some more depth about your wonderful volunteer work, and you certainly are qualified, as I indicated at the beginning of the program, with your honor you received. Could you share with our viewers once you've, as Chris indicated, that you've gone and really actually observed and monitored the class, and now you're taking the student and in the tutoring process, working in great detail. Give us some insight as to some of the skills you use or methodology that you use in trying to assist that student.
Well, let me say this, Tony, that I began this after I graduated from North Idaho College because that I had the feeling that I owed something to the community for what it had done for me. So I started this in trying to pay back something. And then it progressed into something more selfish, I think, because I enjoyed it so much that now I'm getting more out of it, I think, than the students are. And but to answer your question as to how we do this, and what I first that I try to do is to develop a rapport with the student. And once, if I can do that, and make them feel at ease, because a lot of these students, being adults, they're very embarrassed sometimes when they come into us because of their lack of literacy.
So you see self-esteem very low and lack of confidence.
Right.
So I hear you saying you have to build that before you can actually get oftentimes into the subject.
That's exactly right, yes. And I usually try to do that first. And then another thing, when I was going to school, when I was going to college and for my other teachers, I always found that the teachers that I learned more from were those that had a sense of humor. And I don't know, I'm not saying that they were better teachers, but they seem to teach better. And I also try to do that. I try to keep it loosened up, you know, to make them feel at ease, get them at ease, so that they can then relate to me better. If I can get them to relate to me, then I can certainly relate more to them. And that's is what I try to do with them, is try to get them to where that they will open up to me. Most of them, as I said, they are very reluctant sometimes to admit to some of their deficiencies.
And you get to that, then you can start working on those deficiencies.
If you can get them to admit to that, then and let you know what their deficiencies are, then you can work with them much better. And this is a method that I try to follow in getting through to them.
And one final question: once you've discovered that and got to that point, how do you function? Do you explain problems, or do you try to get them to discover the answer to the problem? That's always a real challenge for any teacher or tutor.
I really try. I try to get them to do it. I try to get them to tell me to answer the problem themselves, rather than the only time that I try to explain to them is if they don't understand what I'm talking about or what the lesson is about. Then I will explain to them. But if there is a problem, then I try to get them to answer it to me and let me know. That way, I think that I can ascertain then what better methods that I should use in trying to teach them.
Thank you, Janelle Burke.
Chris, I have a question for you. Suppose we have someone out there who thinks that someone in their family may be illiterate, may not be reading as they should be. What suggestion would you have for them? What would you recommend that they do? How would you recommend that they approach that person?
First of all, they have to be very careful that they're not saying something that will further damage their self-esteem, because what Hugh has said is very, very correct. If they can approach this person in a positive way, that all kinds of people need help with many different areas of learning, and that's why we're so fortunate to have a community college like NIC in this community and its satellite offices so forth throughout the 5 northern counties. If they can do that and get the person to come in and see us and give us a call. A lot of times people will call and will let us know ahead of time. I've talked to so-and-so and they're going to be coming in, so that we can let the people at the front desk to know that when this person is coming in, they'll have the person's name and they can refer them immediately to an instructor, or just be a little more watchful of them and let them know that they will be welcome there. One of the nice things about all of our programs is there is no fee, except for the GED testing. All of these educational services are free.
Now, I'm sure, too, that our program goes out to other areas beside just northern Idaho, and there are literacy programs in other places, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And so you can explore through your own community if you don't happen to live right here in North Idaho. You can explore through your own community the literacy resources that are available.
Yes, you can. We have classes that operate in each of the counties in North Idaho. That's part of our area, as do all the other ABE programs within the state. We ask people to call our main office in Coeur d'Alene or to check with the public library in their community because they carry literature about our programs, or to check with their local school districts. All of those people can refer them to us, and sometimes if a referral comes in, then we will initiate a call and say, would you like to come in and explore this option?
Now, what would you say to the person who may need literacy training, but who says, oh, it's not going to do any good anyway. I've tried that before, it's not going to do any good. What would your response be?
Then we would try to set up a very small, short-term program with that person that would be different from what they had done before, but something that would guarantee success. Sometimes for an older adult, it might be one of the computer programs because they may not have been able to do that before. Or it could be a very small reading assignment or something like that. But once they see the success and see the difference that it makes in their lives, then we have them hooked.
Well, Isla, we've talked quite a bit about self-esteem, and I know that some people who have low self-esteem find themselves in need of literacy. It sort of is a chicken or an egg, which comes first? And so can you tell us about some of the people who might use literacy training to help them gain better self-esteem, maybe better jobs, keep them out of trouble?
It's incredible that you should mention that because it's my belief that self-esteem comes by doing something, moving from here to there. I'm not a real believer personally that self-esteem is something that can be handed to someone. So as Chris says, if you can hook them with small successes, it's wonderful to watch. And I have to do a plug here because I personally also feel that we need to address prison literacy more. And when we're talking esteem, this ties in with it. 85% of all juvenile offenders have difficulty reading and writing and have esteem problems, and many times with a false bravado. And I think when this country addresses that problem in a very intense way, we're going to see some of those esteem problems disappear. And I think we will see fewer repeat offenders. And also in the mainstream population, the same thing applies. When you can do something successfully, esteem rises. And as esteem rises, esteem rises. So,
now we've talked a little bit about what you would do if you needed literacy services, but then I'm sure there are people who are out there who are watching who might say, I'd like to volunteer to become a person who worked with others who would want to learn, just as you have, Hugh. Would you first of all tell us how to get in touch or what you do if you want to be a literacy volunteer? And then secondly, would you give us an example of one of your success stories, or just in very general terms, tell us what's rewarding about working with people?
Well, if they want to get involved in the program, then they can contact Chris at the ABE Center. And it's very simple because it's listed in the phone book, and if they want to call and set up an appointment, it's just that easy. And I know that Chris is always looking for volunteers, so that would be no problem of getting appointed to it. And and as far as rewarding, it has great rewards. When you can sit down with someone who is lacking in literacy, and when you can see the progress that they make over a period of time in learning, and then this is where you really get the rewards from. And It's really, and as Chris mentioned in the program that I've been working with the other instructors of I don't mean the other instructors, but I mean with the instructors, and they have I have assisted them in some ways in math and reading and so on, and this way, instead of working then with the one person that we're assigned with, then I work with several. And this, then you can see the broad scope in which actually then would reveal to you, or a person like me who has never been a teacher, as to how the whole program can progress and how each one can advance as they go through it. And you can realize this better by working with more than one person than you can with the one person. Because, of course, it's natural that some of them will progress faster than others. And, excuse me.
Okay. Isla, just one quick question. We're almost out of time, but I want to ask you, what are some clues that a family might look for, that bravado that a person is hiding, that they cannot read or they cannot use numbers?
Very often an avoidance of any print. That's an indicator. If you have a youngster who won't even read the comic pages in the Sunday paper, quite often parents know if a child can read or not by the time we see them. They're quite often have withdrawn from public school at age 16. That's the population we serve, 16 and above. But an avoidance of anything that has to do with print. If you're observing quite often in couples, one or the other will fill out all the forms, do all the writing, job applications, all the checks.
Read all the bills.
Exactly. Do the speaking quite often for someone. If you have a couple and one person is not literate, go to the doctor, and if the nurse asks, say the man is the person who cannot read or write, if the nurse asks the man a question, the wife will answer, or vice versa. So those are some clues when one person's doing all the talking, or extreme avoidance of anything in print.
We're running out of time, but I want to end on the note what Chris said earlier. Historically, we talked of illiteracy as being the inability to read or write, but now with all the complexities of society, there are a lot more people that need this to cope with the modern technical world, and you're contributing to that, and we thank all three of you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guests today have been discussing the very important issue of literacy, locally, nationally, internationally, and as I indicated, with the technical world we live, we all find areas of illiteracy if we don't learn certain new technology. We hope that you have found this program very informative for you, and we believe you have, and we would like to invite you to be with us again next week when we will discuss what we believe to be an important issue. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
The North Idaho College Public Forum was videotaped live from the studios of Telemedia Services on the campus of North Idaho College for viewing at this more appropriate time. We invite you to join us again next week for another all-new edition of the North Idaho College Public Forum on this public television station.